Recording in
integrate as one to a nation, community, prosperity, peace and harmony. Every soul working hard together for.
Imagine becoming the best writer in the world. Click the button. WordTune is an AI.
Throughout these years, we have resolved, working hard together for truth. unity, the beauty of diversity, bridging all the differences of unity. Let us move ahead, hand in hand as one. Let our virtues stand and face the challenges of time. Let us move ahead, great as one. Be an ASEAN community, prosperity, peace and harmony.
The future's ours. We have the strength. We shall find the peace with ourselves and with the world. And as we strive in our resolve, sharing this one vision of a true community. Let us move ahead, hand in hand as one. Let our virtues stand and face the challenges of time. Let us move ahead, integrate as one to an ASEAN community, prosperity, peace and harmony.
一西吧，我咪笑了。 Ừ.
Morning, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Hello? Okay. Good morning, everybody. Dear participants, the ASEAN Regional Forum on Care Work will begin shortly. May I please request that you take your seats? Online participants, may I please request that you rename yourself with your name, organization, and country. We also wish to advise online participants that closed captions have been enabled for those who would prefer subtitles for this consultation. Excellencies, distinguished guests, and participants, welcome back to the second day of the ASEAN Regional Care Forum. Before we begin, a reminder that this morning we will have a substantial session on partnership building, followed by a review and discussion of the recommendations. We will close the forum with a closing lunch. Online participants, may I please request you rename yourself to your name, organization, and country again. We also wish to, for any technical issues, please send a message through the chat box and our technical team will be able to assist you. With that, I would like to invite our Mr. Thaspon Motseling, the Currency Director of Oxfam Laos, to the stage to recap the events of day one. Yes, the mic doesn't work.
It's not work. Yep. Good morning, everyone. So, Sabadi Ton Sao, no? In Lao language is Sabadi Ton Sao. Ton Sao is morning. So, okay. So I will not take long time for recaps and for the as well as propose on the discussion for the today, for the half day of today before we travel to see the project site in nearby Vientiane as well. So anyway, based on yesterday, it was we have sharing on the best practice and innovation from as well as policy initiative from UN, from other country. Yesterday is much appreciated on that one. So anyway, the idea that we shared yesterday is on the support gender equality by investing in and develop the care economy and addressing UCDW and paid work sectors. More than that, yesterday we also discussed on the urgent needs to develop comprehensive care policy ecosystems that holistically encompass infrastructure and services. And we also look at the paid care and discuss how the issues that care work face can be better addressed in the near future as well. We also look at some of the regional strive made towards maternity protection, child care, and identify some of the most urgent next steps also. We, in that, more than that, we also ended by, sharing the information or how can we manage on to make sure that we have evidence base as well. We hope that today's discussion will help identify pathways to foster on the engagement, partnership engagement and collaboration for the near future among the ASEAN member states and region sectors in advancing the care economy as well. So we have more session today for this discussion on this one, on the partnership engagement and how can we work together in the near future. So we hope that, recommendation that will be endorsed by member state lay out blueprint for the member states and CSO to follow and work together on. The recommendation took, at valuing and care work services and infrastructure as well. It also took a possible option for finance these ambitions and much need initiative. The recommendation also focus on each the priorities areas we discussed yesterday as well. So anyway, as part of the bodies of work, we thrilled to be jointly convening this forum with ASEAN committees on women through La PDI in incumbent ACW share. So that Oxfam, UN ESCAP and the ASEAN Secretariat that we will discuss together more today as well. We hope we are able to collectively achieve the objective of regional forum in terms of the highlighting the importance of valuing and investing in the care economy, in driving economy growth and social development in ASEAN region as well. So today we will continue discussion. As I mentioned, that we hope that we can do agree on the pathway that we need to moving forward and how can we engage collaboration and work together in the future for address this issue and how can we support each other as well. I greatly appreciate for your sharing your best practice, lesson learned, and your capacity and innovation that you have from your end, from your countryside that you share with us yesterday. And I hope that for today we will continue the discussion and sharing the best practice that we have and the ways of working as well. So anyway, I would like to thanks again for your time, participation, and your sharing today. I hope that we will enjoy and continue discussion and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thaspon, for delivering these opening remarks. Before we begin with our main session for today, I would like to hand over to my team to give you some information on today's field visit.
Thank you, Sleha. I would like to re-announce about what I have announced yesterday because it might be confused for some of us here. For this field visit to HomeNet Lao, everyone gonna join, but then for the city tour, you got the option to tick on the box. And I think our team working on arrange your transportation already because they already received the sheet that you already tick on the box. Okay, that's it for my side. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I have the pleasure of inviting Ms. Myra Butt from Oxfam to moderate the session on working together, building strategic partnerships. Please come to the stage. Myra?
Maybe this one. Hello, everyone. Yeah, it's working now. I hope everyone's doing well and feeling fresh after yesterday. Thank you to the Lao team for that amazing dinner yesterday. Slept really well after that as well. And I hope everyone's again has come with positive energy today and is feeling ready to do some work, because there's a lot of work that we have to do today. And yesterday, basically yesterday we heard from the different panelists, and we took a stock in a way of where we are and what progress has been made since the care economy framework. And it was very exciting to see a lot of different ideas being put forward, like the healthy aging plan that's being developed, or the grandparenting scheme. So lots of food for thought and basically inspiration that we can look at. But today we will discuss how we can foster partnerships and collaborations among ASEAN member states, regional organizations, and the private sector in advancing the care economy. So yeah, while yesterday was looking at where we are, I think today we'll focus more on where we want to go. And Miguel kindly set the stage yesterday in terms of how should we strategize, and we'll just take that discussion forward today. Before I start the session, I also wanted to mention that there were a set of recommendations sent out to you with the invitation. And basically, we have more copies if you misplaced them, and I hope you got them with your welcome pack as well. So we'll be doing our group work around that. So I'm just kind of flagging that so that we just have it and we're able to get into the groups after the session. So today the panel discussion will explore ways to foster and strengthen strategic regional partnerships for care among member states, regional organizations, and private sector in advancing the care economy. We have experienced practitioners and experts from diverse backgrounds. We have today, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because we met all three of our panelists yesterday. We have Miguel Musni from the ASEAN Secretariat. Can I please invite you on stage as well? Thank you. We have Shani. I do not know how to pronounce your surname. Shani Lindstrom Augustin, who's the Social Affairs Officer at UN ESCAP. And then we have Miss Sandra Patricia Mendoza Duran. And so she's wearing two hats. So yesterday she was representing the government of Mexico, and today she's representing the Global Alliance for Care. And her work is interlinked, but today she'll be talking a bit more about the alliance itself. Can we give a round of applause to our panelists? Thank you. Thank you. So I'll jump right to it, and I'll start with Miguel, if that's okay. Like I mentioned, Miguel is the Assistant Director and Head of Poverty Eradication Gender Division in the Human Development Director of the ASEAN Secretariat. So Miguel, what are some of the key challenges and opportunities that arise when establishing and maintaining cross-sectoral or interagency partnerships, and how can these challenges be overcome?
Yeah, thank you for that very comprehensive question. I think we could spend around 1 day or 2 days just unpacking that question. I think we started to answer that question yesterday when we talked about mapping and navigating this landscape of ASEAN, because right now this is the platform where we want to explore and promote this work of ours on care work. On the challenges, we saw that there is we go back to the 5 R's. No? There's really a need for the first R to recognize. And yesterday we already saw that there are ASEAN frameworks that give us the mandate to do this. But there's a lot of work that need to be done. Maybe yesterday I promise I'll flash 2 more slides just on the partnership bit. No? Maybe we can pull it up just to bring us back to the ASEAN Comprehensive Framework on Care Economy. So what we're seeing now is that the 6 priorities they correspond to or cover initiatives that are currently being undertaken by ASEAN sectoral bodies. So going to your question, each of these sectoral bodies, they have their own work plans, they have their own projects, no? But to the extent of how they understand that their work contributes to promoting care economy and addressing unpaid care work, it's not that clear. And secondly, how we can use these initiatives that are being implemented by these sectoral bodies. That's an opportunity, no, that we can pursue. But what I do want to highlight is that if everything is a priority, there's a danger that nothing will be done, yeah? Because everything's important, no? So, for example, in this room, if we focus, for example, on the strategic priority on enhancing social protection, leaving no one behind, which is the fifth strategic priority, I'm highlighting this because in this room and online, we have representatives from the ASEAN Committee on Women, and I also believe that there are representatives from the SOMSWAD, the Social Welfare and Development sectoral body, no? And also ACWC. So there are sectoral bodies that already are doing initiatives, undertaking initiatives on this matter. So that's where partnership can be pursued, no? And just one more minute, yeah, to answer that question. If we can go to the next slide. When it comes to other partners, no, I flashed in the next slide there. There's a bit of lag, no. There are actually ASEAN dialogue partners, no, like China, Japan, Korea, and a host of other partners who have this issue in the radar. But there's the question of how to cooperate with one another, no, and the modalities, no. And maybe as a last point, I do want to highlight how we can engage more women's organizations and maintain this conversation and interaction between government officials and women's organizations. No, and I'm not referring to one monolithic women's organization, but the diverse groups of women's organizations, no, that could be engaged at the ASEAN level. So that's an obstacle because we don't have that fully yet, but it's also an opportunity, no, when it comes to partnership. So I'll pause there. Hopefully, I somehow answered the question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miguel. And like you said, it's very complex. So one thing that I did pick out as like an immediate step that we can work toward is building a collective understanding on what care is and how each of the agencies that you've mentioned can actually contribute to care, because it's not just any one agency's or any one line ministry's job to begin with. So like we discussed the whole of government approach, I think that can also be scaled up regionally. That regionally we also need a whole of ASEAN approach towards care, and maybe that recognition can help how their work interacts with care. And I also see private sector on your slide, so I'll move on to Shane now. Shane, how do you strike a balance between leveraging partnerships with the private sector while ensuring that caregiving remains a central responsibility of governments?
Myra, it's already in the morning, and the answer is short. We don't know exactly how to strike that balance. Unfortunately, I don't have a very good practice on this, but at least we are building that awareness and that understanding that we have to balance our intervention across what we talked about yesterday, the care diamond. Private sector is becoming an increasingly important partner for us at the UN, but we also want to make sure that all of our original constituencies are involved at the global level. We have the UN Global Compact. Some of you may be aware of that. We are working on inclusive businesses, and within that context, catalyzing women's entrepreneurship, for example. On care work, I learned a lot from our colleagues at UN Women on what they are doing in partnership with the private sector on digital care, and I think we have a lot to learn. What I had hoped you were going to ask me was a little bit about how ESCAP has forged some of these partnerships. And I had a slideshow, but I thought we could maybe shorten our remarks here and then make it a little bit more interactive. 2 more minutes just to say, it has been really nice to have this occasion, to reconnect with old friends, to make new ones in the room. Had so many nice conversations. I learned just over coffee break from our World Bank colleagues, some really good work in Indonesia with data that we can use in our advocacy efforts. And I was really taken back by the storytelling in particular presentation yesterday. So this is really a very important way to keep the conversations going and to march forward together and to build on all of our strengths, our mandates, where we are coming from. I think it's clear that we want to go to the same place. There was a last slide. I don't know if we could put it up, if you have the PowerPoint. I just wanted to alert you to the fact that the most comprehensive commitment by governments to date on gender equality and women's empowerment is the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. So I guess there are some really good things about it being an almost 30-year-old document because we have that awareness and understanding of it already. But the downside of that is also that in the last 30 years, we weren't able to get to more commitments. The care economy wasn't really thought about back in 1995. So there is, a real need to maybe upgrade this document, but we are somehow apprehensive about it at the same time, because if we do open up negotiations on a document like this, we might see a lot of regression on other points. So we are sitting in between these two chairs, and it's all the way at the end. I just wanted to make you aware that apart from the whole of government approach and the whole of ASEAN approach, there is also the whole of Asia-Pacific regional approach, in addition to, of course, the global level. This is not the end of this. There is this timeline at the PowerPoint. Yeah. Isn't this the one from yesterday? I have another PowerPoint called Panel 5. If it's not important. The important thing was just to mention that the global review and the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action is coming up in 2025, which means that at the regional level, we will have our review in November next year. So this will be an opportunity for ASEAN member states to come together individually, but also as a bloc to advocate for some of the very important and pressing matters for the sub-region, as we call it at ESCAP, because we are also having similar conversations with, for example, the countries of Central Asia, the Pacific Island states, North and East Asia. So as an example, when we convened this meeting, the Intergovernmental Review meeting 4 years ago now, the Pacific Island states had come together with a very strong united stance on climate change and how it was becoming an emergency. And this type of language emanating from our intergovernmentally negotiated declaration now has become formal language used in the UN. And so it has helped then in a number of other ways to create new entry points, funding opportunities for all partners to take forward the work on climate change and women's being impacted. So care economy is maybe one of the priorities that ASEAN member states on occasions like this would wish to put forward, because we now have this group of friends. We have a declaration, and coming from this meeting, we will also have further recommendations that is tailored to this region. So this is just some food for thought and ways in which that we as ESCAP can work in our role as an intergovernmental platform, convening you and making sure that your priorities are being put forward and heard by a larger audience. It was more than 2 minutes, but I just want, yes, okay, so if we could just go to the very end of this. This is it, yeah. So I just wanted to show here that we have had every 5 years since 1995 a review of the declaration, and it's a very comprehensive document. It has 12 thematic focus areas. In our last review, we sort of matched it into 6 of these. There was mention of the unpaid care and domestic work angle, but it can be important to make it even stronger. And we would also look forward to your contributions to a consensus-based outcome document on this occasion. Myra, thank you very much for your patience. Over to you.
No, thank you. This is very interesting, and definitely with the declaration, there's an opportunity coming up. And I think it's the right time to flag this right now, because kind of movement or influencing these processes does take time. And there's, from what I'm seeing, is there's 2 sets of consensus, one across ASEAN and then one taking it forward. So it is definitely like the right time to be talking about this. And thank you so much, Shane, for sharing that. Just moving on to, because again, Miguel talked about it's a process towards regional cooperation, and it takes time, and yeah, you need to strategize around it. So Sandra, what can you tell us about the Global Alliance for Care, and how can regional bodies like these play a role in facilitating strategic partnerships, and how have some of the collaborations you have undertaken, which you also talked about a bit yesterday, made a tangible impact to caregivers and unpaid caregivers? Thank you. You can use this. This one should be fine. This one should be okay.
Thank you so much, Myra. So first of all, yesterday I learned a lot from all of the presents, and I think that's the first thing that I think about when I consider the Global Alliance for Care's work, that it's about we can learn from each other, we can listen to each other, and I think that the greatest virtue of the Global Alliance is that it is a community, a global community, first of all. That means that we are all in the same level, working in a horizontal way, even if it's multi-sector and there's governments there, and there's also organizations from the civil society and other actors. And the other thing is that the global call to action has to be done. And it doesn't mean that we don't recognize the differences of each region, but we have a framework. Some of this framework applies to the whole world. Some other framework is regional. And the only way to accomplish these steps that we have to comply to is working as a global community. So if I can show you a little bit more about the Global Alliance, as I just told you, if we can see the next slide. It was created recently in 2021. It was a result of the Generation Equality Forum, and Mexico is a co-chair of the Global Alliance for Care. And the principles of the space are the co-creation, the collaboration, and the collective action. So talking from a government point of view, this allows us to work freely, like free of all the bureaucracy that we carry on with. That this is one of the virtues of the Global Alliance. And next one, so we have a definition of care as the activities undertaken to ensure the day-to-day well-being of persons from various perspectives. And we recognize the 5 R's of care. We're gonna take a look on the 6th one that was mentioned yesterday, and which is very pertinent, and maybe in the following years more R's will come, because we just are finding each day that we have to see care from a very comprehensive point of view. So one of the things that we learned, of course, is that care is disproportionately carried by women and girls who spend 3x more time on paid work. This is not something new. This is something that was mentioned yesterday, but just to show that we are sharing this perspective in the Global Alliance for Care as what we see as care. Next one, please. And also, this is the membership. It says there 130 members. It's now 134. It's growing really fast. I would describe the Global Alliance for Care as a very active teenager. Now that it has a governance, a body, and that it's just growing up so quickly. As you can see, we have the presence of 17 national governments, 17 local governments, 53 civil society organizations, 6 unions, 13 philanthropies, which is really relevant because we have some money here for the projects, to finance the projects, which is really a challenge for all of us, governments and other bodies here represented. And it also has 9 representatives of the private sector and 19 organisms, including UN. So speaking about private sector, we are in the process of building the criteria to accept new members of the private sector, to avoid, just companies trying to wash away sins from the past, and really accepting those that want to commit to become better employers and to really make a difference, the difference that we need to advance the care policies. Next one, please. And now we will see a little bit about the structure. So we have a General Assembly. We also have the Management Committee. That is the present Management Committee. As I was just saying, the government of Mexico is a co-convener and also a co-chair right now, but this will change eventually. So we will not be there forever. This will change and other countries will be able to be part of the Management Committee. And what is interesting is that you can see there the presence of other organizations, such as IDW Fed, which is here present, and also the Wairu Commission, and also some unions. So this talks about the core of the Global Alliance, which is also to allow that the voices of the caregivers are heard and really make an impact in the decisions that we take, in the steps that we take. And this is something that really characterizes this alliance, that the voices are strong, that we don't always agree, and that is okay because this is a global community and we can always move forward and we can always have activities and forums for all of the participants that just answer to their particular interests or concerns in that moment. The next one, please. So these are the premises of the alliance. I'm now too blind to be able to read that. So I didn't take that into consideration. So the first one would be reversing, thank you so much, reversing the current organization of care, which we all know was deeply impacted by COVID-19 pandemic, and it's just unsustainable. We have to really be able to reverse these poverty levels, this inequality, and the exclusion that COVID-19 generated to women. And the other thing is that we are all just seeing it as a matter of human rights from the human rights approach. And the human rights, we're talking about the caregivers' human rights as workers, and also of the rights of the people that receive care, and also the right to exercise self-care, which is something that women have been unable to do that much because of this just great load that care imposes on them. And also, of course, reduce gender equality, consider differentiated necessities. So this allows that this global alliance is multi-regional and multi-sector. We take into consideration the necessities of the different sectors that are here represented, and also the different regions, to foster the 5 Rs, and also to something very important, to promote co-responsibility, because of course the governments need to implement the public policies, they need to dedicate budget to improve these policies, or to just make them work. But it also implies a co-responsibility from the private sector, from the civil organizations, and of course also from our friends of the UN, which are working with us all the time. And one other thing, it's not a matter of families. I mean, we want just to erase that idea that care is something private and has to stay within the families. It has to be shared by the community and by the governments. Next one, please. So these are, we have a plan for 2023, 2025. which includes movement, which means that all the constituencies, including caregivers and care receiver organizations and all the others involved, engage in collective action to influence the care agenda locally to globally. Then we aspire to a narrative and cultural change, which is done because we are many actors working or making an impact in many spaces. And this means that this transformative agenda can be appropriated by other sectors, and we continue the social dialogue, and we make sure that the conversation takes place in all the fora that is available for us. And the other outcome is advocacy. So the Global Alliance has advocated to position the transformative vision of care in local, national, regional, and global agendas. And what I was just telling you, the horizontal learning. We have to contribute to capacity building, social dialogue, advocacy in a very horizontal way, involving all the sectors that are part of the Alliance. And also strengthening the structure, the operations of the Global Alliance, which is happening every day. Next one, please. So these are some of the strategies and priority areas. The learning aspect of the Global Alliance, which is just a forum, a space to exchange experiences, to exchange community of practices, data, and knowledge sharing. Then the advocacy at multilateral and international level, and also through cooperation. And the communication and cultural change, and also how we disseminate, promote, and make sustainable the Global Alliance. So one of the things that we always are asked as what are the ways to engage with the Global Alliance? What compromises or commitments does it involve? And the answer is none. You can come to the Alliance and give whatever you want to give. Maybe you just want to observe, maybe you want to disseminate, maybe you want to participate, maybe you want to lead, or you want a particular concern to be present in the agenda of the Global Alliance, organize, coordinate, and that is possible. You can come and do whatever you feel like you can do or you can do to contribute to the present discussions in the Global Alliance. The next one, please. So these are the recent events. We talked about them a little bit yesterday. So regarding the Global Grassroots Women Community Caregiver Summit, it was really, they were telling us that it was historic. This was the first time that the voices of the Global Roots community caregivers were being heard. In a space such as Mexico City, we received people from 23 different countries, and we really were able to amplify the voices of this particular group. But this doesn't mean that we will just stay with this particular group. We are now working on amplifying the voices of other sectors of caregivers, maybe more organized, such as caregivers under unions and domestic workers, and other people. And we are also learning about the differences between the caregivers, which is really important also to differentiate and to understand and to also find solutions for every sector. And I think that's the last one. Okay, so these are a little bit of the upcoming events. As you can see, there's a lot of communities of analysis, and we're also trying to do something for the SDG in September, which is going to be a parallel event on the importance of data for care policies. And we work in many groups, but what I want to also say is that Philippines is the only country from ASEAN that is part of the Global Alliance. And we think from the Global Alliance that since care agenda is a burgeoning topic within the region, ASEAN countries can benefit from the platform of the Alliance for the regional advocacy efforts and to further position the care agenda in national, regional, and international spaces. Also, ASEAN countries can also make use of the Alliance to generate and participate in spaces for learning and exchanging experiences about care policies, actions and systems, and think through policy innovations on care. What I learned yesterday is if our regions are very remote, but we are very similar. So this is just an invitation for you to take into consideration the Global Alliance as a way of just having a wider, richer conversation about care. Thank you, Mayra.
Thank you so much, Sandra, and maybe offline everyone can check in how we can sign up. What really stuck out to me was how who gets a seat at the table, and just the management structure itself was very powerful in terms of how CSOs and trade unions and organizations can work together. So that was very exciting. Thank you so much for sharing, Sandra. I just before we move on, I wanted to check if there are any questions. Maybe about the alliance, about private sector, about regional cooperation. Any online? No. Okay, then thank you so much to our panelists, and yeah, and I hope we have an exciting session right after where we have a lot of conversation on the recommendations that have been put forward. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya, and all the discussants for this insightful conversation. We will sort of move on for a short break right now before returning for our group discussion. For the group discussion, we'll be dividing into smaller subgroups. We were circulating a page yesterday and think we're doing so right now. Right next to your name, I would request if anybody still has not filled out, please write your first preference and then your second preference. So while you're in a break, we will make smaller groups, which we will then list out names and then divide you into those groups. And then also for the online participants, they will be directed to their respective breakout rooms. And then for the one person, for those attending in person, I will list out your names following this break. So we will take a short 10-minute break right now. While the group page is being circulated around, I think my team has some housekeeping announcements to make. Mainly, if everybody has registered at the front desk, in case you haven't for today, please do so. It's right outside the door. And I think the second bit is on the sightseeing tour again. If anybody has not signed up and still wishes to go, they can still reach out to my colleague at the end of the room. So if anybody is still interested and still hasn't signed up, that choice is also available.
Good morning, everyone. It's time for break. You can take a break and then we can get back to at, yes. We can get back to the room at 10. 10:30? 10:15? No. Okay. 10:15.เชิญพักผ่อนเด้ออาหารว่างเตรียมพร้อมแล้วอยู่ทางนอกเห็นไผยังนั่งอยู่
Let's on. Aduh. Aduh.
Udah makan aku dia banget ini dan apa? Kan banget dia nak. Mungkin aku itu yang kayak mungkin aku itu yang ni salah itu
Ini yung kanan lagi. Ah.
Wih, mana nanti deknya? Dulu yang ini udah
All right, everybody, we're about to begin the group discussions. Please make your way back to the hall. I think everybody's in. All right. So we're going to now start the group discussions. The group discussions on the recommendations on supporting and enabling a care economy in the ASEAN. The group discussion will have 5 smaller group discussions. They are all, the topic areas of each 5 of them are based on the panels we had in this event, 4 from yesterday and 1 from today. And we have, again, we circulated your preference, which group you would like to go into, and we have divided you in. So I have sort of displayed your names in accordance to the groups. The ones highlighted are the facilitators of that group. So please just have a look over your name if everybody can see it. And we can sort of divide the room. We'll have group 1 over here, group 2 over here, 3, 4, and then 5. So the facilitators can make their way. So Leah is the facilitator for group number 1. She's over there. Those under her name can make her way to her and her table if that's what you prefer. For group number 2, I am the facilitator. I just make my way down, but I'll be sitting there, I believe. So everybody who's under group number 2, please make your way to that table or this table. I think we'll come back to this table. Okay. For group number 3, it's Schubert. Schubert, I think you need to. Group number 3. My apologies. It's Laura. Group number 3 is on maternity protection. Laura. Those under her name, I think Laura, you might need to move because all the facilitators are on the same desk. I just realized. So all the ones in group number 3 will go to the table where Laura is in. You can come, I guess you can come here. Group number 4 is Schubert. Schubert, I think you would need to stand so everybody can know. So those under his group can go where I think Schubert needs to identify a table. And lastly, group number 5 from today's session is Myra. So okay, that's your table? Okay, group number 5. So we took into consideration your first preference and second preference. So those, if there were too many in one group, we went with your second preference. I hope that's all right with everybody. And now I would like to hand over to Shane so to go over the instructions of what we are going to do in these groups.
Okay, everyone, let's just settle down at the tables and then I will just take you through very quickly the next steps.
We will borrow your table for a moment. Group 4.
Okay, so if you haven't seen your name on the screen, you may just pick one group. The groups, as you know, are divided according to the panel discussion. So we have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, and so we are just distributing some handouts with the draft recommendations. So is this group number 3? You may be seated. And then group number 2 participants. So yesterday we exchanged information and we learned from our friends and partners about the care economy, but this part is arguably the most important part of our coming together. This is what we cannot do very easily in a virtual room. Now we are so privileged that we have placed all of us on the same page. We understand the context, we understand the challenges, we understand some of the important priorities going forward. And so what these recommendations are intended to serve are multiple purposes. For example, for me as a representative of the UN, I would like to use this consultation as an opportunity to feed into our intergovernmental work, as I was just explaining on the upcoming Beijing Plus 30 review. The outcome document from that intergovernmental conference is going to be informed by the recommendations today. I am sure Miguel at the ASEAN Secretariat also has some ideas up his sleeve of how he is going to leverage this within a larger ASEAN context in the various committees and the frameworks that are relevant to the care economy. And if you are from an ASEAN member state, you can use these recommendations at home with your colleagues, both in your own departments, but also other ministries that have portfolios relevant to the care economy. You can explain to them the importance. You can explain to them that there is an emerging ASEAN level consensus on some of the priorities. And you can explain to them that there are opportunities for strategic partnerships as well, and funding too. And if you come from civil society, hopefully you will also be able to use these recommendations to insert yourself strategically in policy forums such as these or other events. So that's what the recommendations are for, and this is why it's very important that we now have a very engaging discussion. We are expecting all of you to participate. So we have moderators on each table, and I think that they will put you on the spot if you are not going to volunteer your thoughts and ideas. We really want to hear them from all of you. So now the draft recommendations have been circulated. They were also on your table yesterday as part of the guidance notes for this meeting. If you take a look at that sheet, then the first heading is on valuing and investing in unpaid care and domestic work. So this first section is really the sort of umbrella that just contextualizes and sets the stage for unpaid care and domestic work in the ASEAN context. So this is some recommendations for all groups to consider, but they are relatively generic. And most of the meat of these recommendations are when we move into the various panels. So yesterday, we had the first panel on the care responsive policy ecosystem. So you can see that there are 3 sets of recommendations under this A: care infrastructure investment, B, care services, C, gender responsive budgeting and financing of policies. So this is for the first group to consider. This is group 5, or where is group 1? Okay, so this is for group 1 to consider. Is this a good categorization? Should we add some more categories? Or if these categories are already capturing quite well our discussions, are there something that we should add or subtract from this? And then we have group number 2 here on the care workforce. There is some background here. You have 5 recommendations, so a little easier than group number 1. And then we have group 3 on maternity protection and childcare. Where is group 3? That's here. Okay, excellent. So that's 7 recommendations. And the data and evidence building. Group 4, finally, partnerships recommendations. So Maya is moderating this, and I also asked Miguel to support this part. So here it is. On the screen, we have 40 minutes to share our experiences and practices. Maybe you have been sleeping on some ideas, or you had some new food for thought generated from our discussion and learning yesterday. And then, is there a way that we can identify in your countries some entry points for policy development, or inserting ourselves into some existing initiatives, or maybe some pipeline projects as well? Then your moderators are going to ask for 1 group representative to be nominated to present in the larger plenary discussion. So each group, after these group discussions are over, will come back and report on the discussions. We will also ask other participants if they have any further reflections, and then we will go around the room like that. And we have now 17 participants online. I will moderate this together with my colleague Jess. I think we will split into 2 groups. And then we will also come back to plenary and report on our online discussions. For online participants, we are going to take a look at the entire recommendations and see if we have some good ideas for any of them. And then when the various groups come back and report, is that my camera for the online participant? And then we will come back here and report under each of the various subsections. So we have 40 minutes now, and I don't know what time it is. 10:30, so 11:10, at 11 o'clock, we will remind you that there is 10 minutes left. and then we come back at 11:10. So we are looking forward to your contributions. Thank you very much.
อันที่เคยแจกไปแล้วใช่ปะอันเดียวกันไหมโอเค Senior officials for the region. Those were the secretaries who have received the nomination because Malaysia was the newcomer chair of the ASEAN community, and their things are being last video this there are opportunities there for initiative of course Yes. So maybe we can ask our we have a new member. Hi, let me share your name and your country. Translator. Yeah, oh, good. Your name and your country. Okay, can we start the conversation? Start the discussion. Okay. So first, I just like to thank the conversation and maybe perhaps something to comment or to say. Can you do it briefly? And it's also other than good. Okay. But actually, approach is not like just the approach is actually not the traditional sort of road to interaction and market to explain just in general. So it's actually it's you can say that so let me put out here things that how can we so if every budget varies unfortunately it doesn't really yes. Yeah, so actually yeah, so anything else? Digesting everything. Yeah, but there are other anything else? There are positive around here. Never know that like this. Again, we have this set priorities, human rights so at that time, I want to share with you how my thinking about space. So I was able to remember this one yesterday, right? Based on the research that I did at the University of educating the music here in the whole session is about air infrastructure, air quality system infrastructure. So there are different layers of air infrastructure, one is physical air infrastructure, like air services, air quality regulations, monitoring air pollution, and everything else. And who are the actors? Are the government, civil society, business, and human rights. Seven out of 10 recommendations are able to capture this one because what I see is what I see so far. I was able to did you see that one? Energy, transport, water and sanitation, communication, social protection, health, education, PCCD and child care, and environment. Or maybe perhaps if I missed one, I write it down. Yeah, maybe perhaps I missed something, but please let me know. Recommendation about energy, transport, PCCD and childcare, PCCD is PCCD and childcare. What else? Employment benefits, you see it, I think that's it. So this is the clear services that is mentioned in the application. Do you see the what do you think And the second part is the others. It says here, number one, invest in the invest in their infrastructure. Yeah. Most of the words is like invest. So it means budget. Invest on their another thing, it says also invest part of the investment is more resources. It says also here yes, plus so invest on resources, on technology. So like invest in this care services. Yeah. So another option is that is enable more flexible workplace solution. Because it says your work yeah, it's still on budget, no? Flexible workplace. Yeah. Access to justice. So, meaning it's not electric here. Okay, so you can add in the care services. So like we need to have access to justice. Policy around For negotiations, visibility, management, responses, as a separate payment and outside the form of financial support for social welfare, trial, so from going back to the options, it calls for the majority calls for I don't know, it calls for robust budgeting. You say if you see that it's very much focused on investment, but robust budgeting, gender, that budget. Another one is that it says also campaigning and information communications. Here is promotion let's see. Okay, so do you think that it's still missing? Do you think there's still missing actions from the government, the private sector, the community, based on from my end, here I have as mentioned yesterday, that especially the Asia, we are very significant and here is being serving that's a wrong interpretation. But I don't see there is an investment mentioned here about the access of care. What else?
Hi everyone, I just wanted to say that I think we have 5 minutes left in the group. Are we good?
Whoever is our reporter, is the green one is the addition, the blue one is what is here. Okay, we're going to do it, but if we add more options, it's about this. Okay, so what else? Should we put in the recommendations as well, like maybe be clearer on the care infrastructure definition? Because most of the time, the infrastructure, quote unquote, will just be only focused on physical infrastructure. But we're trying to say here, like for example, for this research, it actually talks about more infrastructure framework systems that enable temporary access and provision of them. So in other terms, physical.
But it should be of your own will and accord. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your participation. No, I mean, we don't need to.
Real good? Are we happy with the results? So, were we able to capture our objective or portion of were we able to review the recommendation? Yeah? Were we able to look into possible partnerships and funding opportunity or recommend for a funding opportunity? And then maybe perhaps this one, entry point to country level. Is there any like your recommendation for a more partnership and collaboration with the country level? Yes, any suggestion? So the participants so like the conversation to strengthen to see the best practice of the trainers. Yeah, it did have an effect to strengthen the implementation of this policy. Should we say continue learning and share happiness? So there will be next month there will be another learning, sharing. Best should we say best practice and to continue learning and share best practice and challenges. Policy implementation here, like monitoring. No? Oh, return of investment. Yes.
Dear participants, I think we gave you 5 minutes extra for Leah to finish writing on the board. Another 30 seconds and then we have to come back into plenary. I hope hope our photographers got some really nice photos of this discussions. I saw a lot of body language and a lot of positive energy in the room. Thank you very much to everyone to contribute this energy, this knowledge. It's a really wonderful opportunity for all of us to be here together. Some more microphones. Give them to each of the. Yeah. So before I'm going to put every group on the spot, I just wanted to hear whether in any of the groups you had some comments on the overall umbrella recommendations on valuing and investing in unpaid care and domestic work. So if you look at your draft recommendations now, we have some applause here from group. Valuing and investing in unpaid care and domestic work, there are three overarching recommendations here. Were there any groups who were discussing on these? It doesn't seem so. So I think it sounds like it was a good way to start off the recommendations. Then may I ask group number one? Who from group number one was nominated as the rapporteur to report back to this plenary discussion? A microphone, does that work? Yeah, okay, then you. Thank you very much. Let's turn over the floor to you.
That's okay. So everyone can see. Or should we move it? Oh, I completely forgot. Yeah. All right, I'll just read it out then so the interpreters can also catch it. I'm Pravin from Group 1, or not Group 1, we're the I Laba You group. We had a great time. So we analyzed the recommendation in the framework under care responsive policy ecosystem from infrastructure to services. And when it came to sort of like critically looking at the policy recommendations, we have a whole list of what could potentially be included to the drafts. And one thing is figuring out the target audience of the framework, because it is a multi-stakeholder. I mean, the care work and work on care work and the care economy is a multi-stakeholder process. So the recommendations would need to clearly delineate who takes action, which stakeholder undertakes what specific action, how to do it. This is also very closely linked to budget opportunities, because economic context varies across countries in ASEAN, access to budgets, investment, whether it be public investment or even private investment, and then whose perspective, who is reading these recommendations, right? That goes back to the point about a multi-stakeholder like action roadmap. And when it comes to recommendations, an important point was indicating timelines, because I think as pointed out yesterday, when you have too many priorities, it becomes difficult to address all of them at once. So whether there's like a short-term, medium-term, long-term timeline, or a timeline of the implementation of the framework, what comes first, what comes next, which doesn't discount the importance of anything, but just helps us prioritize what to do first. Also, while also considering capacity, which goes back to budget. And then budget implications and priorities for budgeting. So we have gender responsive budgeting, but also it goes back to budget opportunities and investment. And also going back to the topic of timeline is identifying the priorities for implementation. So what do you work on first? What policy do you work on first? What is the first step when it comes to the implementation and the recommendations? And it says that depending on the country context and capacity. And the next thing is a stronger rights-based framework. Undeniably, the draft recommendation does have a rights-based perspective, although not the most explicit, because when it comes to care work, it needs to be framed as a human rights issue as well, because it's a space for a lot of inequality and discrimination. And as I shared within the group, I'm very sure that most ASEAN countries have the right to equality and the right to non-discrimination entrenched in national constitutions or national level laws. So to anchor a human rights-based approach to one development, and also to ensure that the economic, social, and cultural rights of women is evident in developing the framework, and not only developing the framework, but also implementing the framework. And then finally is tailor-fitting messages according to the stakeholders, going back to the target audience of the framework. And we have the clear definition of care investment care infrastructure. Because when we talk about infrastructure, the first thing that comes to mind is physical infrastructure, roads, homes, schools, childcare centers, but not only limiting it to physical infrastructure, but also, I think I wrote it down a bit here. Yes, but also policies, systems, frameworks, even conceptual understandings on care and the care economy. Based on, of course, a human rights-based approach that enables the effective delivery and implementation of the recommendations, but also the access of care workers to the recommendations and access to the next thing, to the care services, because we can have all the care services we want, but allowing care workers across different sectors, in urban settings, in rural settings, grassroots settings, even when it comes to indigenous women, to accessing the care services. That is what it means by a more robust understanding and reframing of the care policy infrastructure. So when it comes to the care services, these were all the services that were listed down in the recommendations. You can have a look at them, but briefly is energy, transport, water and sanitation, communication, health, education, early childhood development, care and development, plus childcare, technology, and social protection. But what we thought was missing from the recommendations was access to justice. Because we were rethinking how we see care, but realistically what's happening on the ground now is that care work is concentrated at home. And at home is also a site of potential violence, gender-based violence, violence against women. So when it comes to supporting survivors of GBV, who pays, very practical question of who pays for their transport to the hospital, who pays to their transport to the police station even, or access to the health, recovery healthcare, and which is also linked to this, which is the financial support for social welfare, because that falls into within that ambit. And then we go to action needed by stakeholders. So these are the actions that were in the framework, which is mostly focused on investments, right? So investment in care infrastructure, and then also enable flexible workplace practices, robust budgeting with a focus on gender and development, and the promotion of care policy work. But what was missing, and what we would really like to see, is care and climate action. Because realistically, the most pressing issue we're facing now in Southeast Asia, but also around the world, is the climate crisis, which has undeniably exacerbated care work, the disproportionate undertaking of care work, and the inequalities that women face when doing care work. And then, of course, is the implementation of international standards. Shanae has pointed out that every space we go, we have the SDGs backing us, specifically SDG goal number 5. But there are other international standards that support, that can guide our implementation of care work and what we might be missing out on. Specifically, one is CEDAW. The CEDAW committee currently has very clear approach to care work and the care economy, which links back to stuff like social protection, equal remuneration, right to equal pay of work of equal value. So I was just telling Leah that recently, in the context of ASEAN countries, the Philippines received a very good recommendation on care work and social protection within the ambit of right to equal pay of work of equal value. So it's also rethinking and referring to international standards, because I'm very sure that most ASEAN countries, if not all, have ratified CEDAW. And then it is also the policies, which is linked to understanding understanding and interpreting regional, national, and international standards. Very basic stuff like reducing the wage gap and the pay gap, as going back to the right to equality and the right to non-discrimination for women, and then giving them financial independence, mobility, access to work, economic rights once again. And this is sort of, it's wrapping up to all this is stronger social norms campaigning. So making sure that our campaigns on care work do not fall back to the essentialization of women and the naturalization and limiting of their role at home and caring. So, it's broadening it past that, and also it goes back to not helping, but ensuring that men undertake equal care work at home too. And then when it comes to potential for partnerships, we looked at the regional and the country level. So one is, of course, we love our learning spaces like these. And we've learned a lot from each other the past couple of days. Leah said, why not have another one next month? So, ASEAN member states participant to continue learning and sharing best practices. But not only best practices, but also the challenges, right? Because not everything is good and handy dandy all the time, but we have challenges in implementations, challenges in conceptual understandings, interpretation of norms. And when it comes to all these sharings, it goes back to also sharing the effectiveness of care policy implementation, because that's a huge gap. Sometimes we have very progressive policies and good laws and legal frameworks in place, but it comes to implementation and enforcement, there are gaps. And then it's impact mapping and documentation. I mean, in the CSO world and the donor world, we love MEL, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. So a framework of that to sort of monitor the return of investment, because we're investing in care work, we're investing in the care economy, in women workers, whether it be actual monetary investments, whether it be investment in policy making. So investing in how have right holders reaped the rights, right? How have women reaped the rights as promised in these policies? And then finally, when it comes to regional blocs like ASEAN, or even regional blocs, I know there's also one in Latin America on care work, is shared ownership and accountability of the care policy recommendation. This is a document, a framework that we've worked on together in ASEAN as ASEAN member states, right? So yes, it's good that we own it as an ASEAN framework, but at the end of the day, also taking accountability to see through its effective implementation, which goes back to impact mapping, to actually seeing changes on the ground. So that is all we have from the I Love You group. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much for a very articulate presentation of your discussions. I am so impressed. And now we clearly have a lot more homework to do to update the recommendations accordingly. In the room now, I'm not going to ask for anyone to express their support to this, but if you disagree, or if you have some further thoughts that wasn't mentioned, may you raise your hand? We can also give a moment to think about it, and you can come back at the end of all of the presentations. So let's move to group number 2. And we have a rapporteur in waiting and a microphone. Floor is yours.
Thank you so much. We in Group 2 actually had an intense discussion, so much that we delved a lot into the details of how we want to implement a few things. And that's one of the reasons we focused a lot on the first category of recommendation that we had mostly, and we have lesser recommendations as we go down. But the first thing that actually stood out for us was investment in training. So there are 3 things that we recognized here. First is that there are existing programs that are already in place for the certification and the recognition of care workers, but at the same time, they do not cater to the entire diversity of care workers who are out there. Therefore, all of these trainings, these certifications, these skill recognitions need to be tailored in such a way that the diversity is included, which means that it needs to include disability care, elder care, or child care, depending on the country and the context.
The second point that we had was that the training designing and the training accessibility needs to have the workers' perspective in place. Having a training system or an incentive system or a skills recognition system that disincentivizes workers from accessing it is something that would not help in this context. And therefore, designing the training, keeping mobility in mind so that workers can access it, keeping literacy in mind so that all classes of workers with different skill sets can be included, and keeping compensation in mind so that attending these trainings do not essentially bore a hole into their earnings for their month or for their year. So this is what we had with respect to training. And with regard to policies and programs, we were essentially looking at how paid care workers and informal workers in the sector essentially do not come under the purview of many labor laws and programs. So one is that we have legal protections in place that essentially recognizes this as work and puts the legal protections of private agencies and private companies as a standard form that can be taken and looked into for practice. The other thing is that as we are trying to implement it, the best practices from private agencies, while taken, at the same time, it becomes a huge issue for the government to deal with delivering trainings to many employers as well as workers across the country, which is the reason there can be scope for a private-public partnership here, where the private enterprise can actually take on the role of distributing this training and coming up with the best practices and introducing this as an incentive venture. The third is when it comes to, let me first jump to inclusion first because that makes more sense. Regarding inclusion, as we were having discussions, we realized that the presence of a union or the presence of an association of workers is very important when it comes to representing themselves, as well as having conversations with employers and government. And that is something that a representative from the government recognized. And therefore, one of the recommendations that we have from the group is freedom of association. As in certain countries in the ASEAN, freedom of association is not there for certain paid care workers, and therefore this is something that needs to be there in the legal mandate of the recommendations. And last is the challenging gender norms, is to have a good men campaign. What is it that decides and what is it that actually defines a good man when it comes to taking the responsibility of care work, and the impact that it has on parents and children and in school, and the intervention areas as well, in educational areas where this can actually be discussed as a form of practice. And the second one is to encourage to change social attitude, which is essentially discussions at different levels as we talk about changing gender norms at the governmental and the civil society levels. So thank you. Did I cover everything? Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for these very pertinent observations and commentaries. I am so sorry to tell you that we are running a little low on time. We still have 3 groups, and we have the online discussion that we would like to report back to on as well. And before we have the closing, we would also invite the ASEAN Secretariat representative for his reflections. So I don't know how I can say this, but for group number 3, may you please try to shorten your remarks a little bit. And then if we haven't managed to capture everything, you can write to us subsequently, and we will make sure that all of your commentary is included in the meeting report, and to the greatest extent possible, the recommendations as well. So group 3 has already the microphone. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shani. Yeah, so group 3 talks about maternity protection and childcare. So basically we identify some things that needs to be the contributors to enable this. So in terms of government, it's all about regulation, private sector to make sure that we have robust policy at workplace that will enable gender
lens and care to be at place, individual to practice that. And we also say that to be able to achieve that, we need to accompany any cultural, any regulations and policy by a cultural and also norm shift for men to take role in unpaid care work at home, particularly, related to the delivery of the baby and the care work to the child care. And of course, for ASEAN, it's really an encouragement and also a request that we need to raise to the top so that all state members are synergized, synchronized, and also become the enabler for the care policy across the region. Some of the practical kind of policies that we discuss is really to make sure that gender equitable care leave policies are at place. And when we discuss about care, it doesn't stop us or limit us to the child care, but also to include care for the family members like elders, disabilities, and others. And when it comes to any leave policies related to maternity and paternity, to make sure that longer leave period is accommodated and synchronized policies whenever possible, it is actually encouraged, for the ASEAN state members to achieve that. And we discussed a lot how we link the regulations or policies that enable this at formal workplace, but also to make sure that the people that are working in the informal sectors or entrepreneurs can actually also be protected. So we discussed a lot how this should link to social security scheme and also to other basic facilities and healthcare coverage and public services that should be made available so that it linked to the rights of the mothers and the children for different age after delivery. And when it comes to workplace flexibility, basically we also would like to ensure that discrimination is not going to be found, in any arrangement of the workers, employers, and employments, and basically to make sure that the policies are actually quite progressive in a way that it's not only to prepare working moms to be ready going back to work, but also to make sure that they can be a productive working mom and achieve, their goals. And of course, we discussed about on-site and also communal support in terms of child care. And related to the employment contracts, we have distinctive kind of, the discussion really cover about formal working arrangements, informal, also include migrants and those who are also undocumented, in terms of migrant workers. And we try to look at how we also support the migrant workers. So this is related to the social protection scheme, domestic worker protection regulation, reduce the remittance costs in ASEAN countries so that it doesn't reduce the income of the migrant workers, and also to make sure that if it is possible to have a synergized and linked social security scheme in ASEAN state members. I think others is just some practical kind of program policy and examples from different countries where partnership can be done with private sector for distribution, for resource mobilization, for care provision and services, a program in the format that it should be like facilities, but it should be also covering cash benefit or in-kind benefit that can be accessible for families. Also linked to the early childhood development and also education centers. And we discuss about care workers that nowadays are provided through digital apps and through innovations. So we want to request as well that governments look at care industry in such a way that we also have policies at place to make sure that we consider and cover, the issues of protection, safety, certification, and competency of the quality of the core care workers, and monitor this in implementation. And finally, because community support is still important, so we want to make sure that the ecosystem also support and encourage community initiative on care. That's it. So I will pass on.
Group number 3, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Group number 4, Rapporteur.
Yes.
This will be very, very fast. We have a very substantive discussion among ASEAN member states regarding the data and evidence building on care and technology. And based on our discussions, we realized that there is an even landscape among ASEAN member states, meaning some AMS have data on care and some doesn't have any at all. Some AMS also shared that recognizing care economy is still a challenge for them, even for their own homes and their organizations. So we came to realize that those that have data have limited reporting coverage, and that there is, I think everybody has this problem, inadequate budget to sustain the data gathering. So our recommendation, first, although we have the ASEAN Comprehensive Framework on Care Economy, we do recommend that ASEAN should develop or introduce common methodology in key indicators and reporting template for ASEAN member states to facilitate the sharing among our best practices or challenges. We recognize that there is a need to map care providers among AMS, so that including those of the informal sector, so that we may be able to benchmark the care providers that are present in our AMS. And then lastly, there is a need for an enabling law and to support the implementation of data gathering and evidence building on care and technology at the country level. So that is all for 2.
Very important. Thank you very much for these discussions. I'm moving very fast now in the interest of time to group number 5's rapporteur. Miguel, please, floor is yours.
For group number 5 on partnership, there were a lot of discussions, but we grouped it, at least in my mind, at the national level in terms of partnership. There's a recognition that the recommendations accommodate the national context, and there is a recommendation to recognize that there are existing collaborations between ministries, CSO. So instead of saying fostering, it's actually to enhance. Also at the national level, to translate the recommendation to on investment strategies, there's a specific call for gender responsive budgeting. And still at the national level, and segueing to partnerships with international financial institutions, making sure that technical assistance and grant mechanisms would be appropriate and not overly burden involved parties. Now, at the ASEAN level, there was a recognition that in our group, we have Brunei Darussalam, who is the champion of the framework on care economy. We also have Malaysia as the incoming chair of the ASEAN Committee on Women. So by September and then the whole year of 2024, there would be an occasion to highlight care work as a priority policy issue. And of course, Lao PDR as the incoming ASEAN chair in 2024. So that corresponds to the policy dialogue, regional dialogue under item number 27. Maybe as a last point, there was also a discussion on enabling factors such as monitoring and evaluation, making sure that all of these recommendations, we track the progress. Also, balancing, how can I put it diplomatically? profiting from social enterprises, and at the same time, on the other hand, the care dimension, no? Because that goes into the heart of public-private people partnership and engaging the private sector. On one hand, there are social enterprises engaged on providing care services, but there's also a recognition that these are businesses. No? So I think so far, those are the key things that we discussed. From the group, maybe you have some items you want to add? No more? Okay. So that's it, Shane. Thank you.
Miguel, thank you so much. Thank you very much. We have the online group as well, which was moderated by myself and my colleague Jessica. Jessica, floor is yours.
Thank you. So yeah, I think as is always the curse of being the final group, a lot of the points have already been made, particularly on potential entry points for employment-related policies. That was discussed a lot. And I think really highlighting the importance of addressing the care economy and unpaid care work. Yeah. Another thing we spoke about a lot was how I think ASEAN member states are all at different stages in their efforts to address the care economy. And this is especially evident when considering national contexts. And each country faces unique challenges and opportunities when it comes to unpaid care work and developing comprehensive care policies. And I think recognizing these variations really underscores the importance of partnerships and collaborative efforts such as the forum today. And I think we spoke kind of how by working together, countries can pool resources, build capacity, share best practices. And through these collaborations, we can learn from each other and support each other and find solutions that can be adopted to suit these specific national contexts. Another thing we briefly touched on, I think Group 1 already delved into the intersection of gender-based violence and care work. And I think we observed that a lot of development efforts in some of our ASEAN member states do focus a lot on reducing gender-based violence, but often not from a care economy perspective. So I think there was an emphasis on the importance of adopting a care economy approach in future development work to kind of effectively address the two issues and foster gender equality and empower women in a more sustainable manner. Shanae, is there anything else that I've missed from our discussions?
No, I think that was a really excellent, eloquent articulation of our very interesting discussions. Jessica, thank you so much. I just wanted to mention that we had particular conversations with Timor-Leste as well as a accession member to the ASEAN community, and that ESCAP would seek to provide support on the care economy within this context. So this concludes the presentations. Thank you very much to all of you, to the moderators, the rapporteurs, and the participants in the various groups. Let me return to my first question. No need to reiterate support or agreement with the presentations that were made by the rapporteurs here, but if you disagree or if there are things that you feel were omitted from the various discussions, looking at the context of the draft recommendations, we would invite your contributions now. I'm looking for a microphone that I could hand to anyone. Couple of observations. Myra, please, the floor is yours.
There was just one change from our group in the partnership recommendations. So particularly recommendation 28, one thing the group agreed on was replacing foster with enhance, because foster could mean starting out, and enhancing means that there's already a relationship already, and also to the list adding UN agencies. Which, I mean, everyone agreed on, so just sharing this one change. Thank you.
I think that was an important omission. Thank you for pointing it out. Please, let's invite any other participants for their final commentary or observations. Then I can share with you that your discussions have really prompted a significant edit of the draft recommendations. So we now need to do some homework on our side, make sure that we capture these recommendations very well. We had hoped to share with you a bit earlier the recommendations, but we may need a week or two to make sure that we got all our bases covered. Once we share the recommendations with you, we work according to what we call a silence procedure,
and this is only applicable to ASEAN member state representatives here, there is a 7 days to consider the draft recommendations. We will edit and update accordingly within this time frame. Any comments received after that, the document will close. We will also consider recommendations from civil society organizations and other representatives, but cannot promise their integration as well. Before we go to the closing session, I would like to invite my esteemed colleague, Miguel. You have some reflections on all of these group discussions for us, the final food for thought for us to chew on as we return back home.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shani. When you say esteemed, I suddenly felt like dim sum, yeah? Like steamed and very appropriate because we're about to head to lunch, yeah? Maybe that's the Asian in me, no? When I hear the word esteemed, I quickly revert to food. Anyway, just 3 key points after listening to all the group discussions, the reports. First is that there is, and quite happily, agreement, general agreement across the board on the recommendations. And at the same time, there is really an eagerness to provide more details, no? Across all the groups. Not just on the language, but also on specific strategies. We heard the need to identify which target groups that these recommendations need to speak to, as well as specific strategies. And there was a mention of a timeline, but I'm quite allergic when it comes to timelines because we can be ambitious and set a moving horizon, maybe. Also, there was a discussion on, at least in my part, a reflection on continuously improving our capacities. No? Related to this first point on having general agreement, the question there is how to implement these recommendations, and 2 things popped up in my mind. No? The word access, and also how to ensure that these recommendations are grounded on realities at the community level, no? And in the homes, because that's where really the battle is. No? The second point, as part of reflecting on the discussions, is that the missing items. No? And what really resonated with me is from group 1 on care and climate. No? I think this is an example of things that we still need to investigate and unpack, and probably a collective assignment for all of us. No? And the third reflection is that across all the reports, we saw that there was a recognition of policy linkages. For example, between labor laws, social protection, maternal health, no? But I was just wondering, as a food for thought, no? On one hand, it's good to recognize all of these policy linkages, but on the other hand, how do we guard against being too broad and risking or being at risk of diluting our specific policy asks? So that's why maybe as one of the reflections I want to move forward is how can we be very clear on our asks, what specific outputs? And I think one of the things that from that group, I heard there's a recommendation for ASEAN to develop guidelines, or so that kind of very clear proposal, no? Because for example, once we move this conversation to, for example, the ACW, the ASEAN Committee on Women, and also on the social welfare sector, there would be a natural understanding of the issue. But when they start communicating this to their co-equal sectoral bodies, it cannot be assumed that they already know the policy linkages. No? Again, there would be a danger, for example, for the health sector to just say, oh, we're already doing that. So what more can we do? No? So we have to be very clear on the specific outputs or recommendations. So those are just the 3 reflections I have after listening to all the reports from the group. So maybe we can all pat ourselves on the back and applaud ourselves for a good job. We can clap our hands. Very productive discussions. I was so intimidated when I saw all the notes from this group and also here. So good job, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. Before we begin our closing remarks, I would like to request all the participants to take a few minutes to complete this an electric evaluation for this regional forum. You may find the QR code, which will soon be displayed on the screen, with a link and a link in the chat box for the online participants. So this is just to help us to improve, events like this in the future. I'll give you like about a few moments to do that, and. Okay. A QR code will be provided to you separately at the end of the event then. My apologies. All right. So to end this, okay, now it's here. Sorry about this technical difficulty. You can open your phone's camera to scan this QR code. It's just a 30-second evaluation form. Oh, you didn't. We give another few seconds. All right. So to end this two-day regional consultation, we will now have our closing remarks. I would like to invite Madam Sokaphon Panit, who is the Permanent Secretary at the Laos Women's Union, on behalf of the ACW Chair to deliver her closing remarks. Please make your way towards the stage.
Oh, it's not still good morning, it's almost good afternoon already. Mr. Thasapon Busaling, National Director of Oxfam in Laos, Ms. Kai Kai, Chief Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Program of the Social Development Division, ESCAP, participants, colleagues, friends of the Forum on Care Work for ASEAN countries, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Her Excellency Thamma Petbisai, Vice President of the Laos Women's Union, the Chair of ACW, and the Chair of the Forum, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to everyone who actively participated in such an important forum. Indeed, our discussions and the policy recommendations we agree upon will be contribute to the promoting a care economy and addressing unpaid care and domestic work in ASEAN countries. On this occasion, I applaud your contribution from all my heart. Please give a big round of applause for all of us. Throughout the discussions and exchange of the views on the various participants who participated in the conference room and online, it's evident that we have moved forward to the conversation on promoting care work in the region. At the same time, there are still many things that we need to organize and set up, such as improving policies, develop appropriate frameworks for each country, and create action plans of ASEAN together for ASEAN region. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that everyone recognizes and visualizes the way forward by understanding and seeing the problems, including the obstacle regarding care work in the region. And I do hope that all of us will continue to work, especially to empower women and girls and realize the rights in ASEAN, and so that no one is left behind. I would like to highlight the word recognition, redistribution, reduction, representation, and reward. The 5 R's of decent work to be the standard for organizing our work in the future. Let's add value and invest on unpaid care and domestic work and contribute to a caring care economy in our countries. We have discussed and the outcome of this meeting to create a set of consensus based on recommendations that will help us to chart the way forward. This can guide us, inspire us, and ultimately lead to a new and promising policy innovations. When we work together, if we did not hear from you in the next 7 working days, if we not hear from you, we will assume your agreement to the recommendations, and we will include them in the meeting report, which will be circulated to you in a few weeks' time. We recognize the significance of partnerships and collaborations in fulfill our objectives. The partnership between and among the ASEAN sectoral bodies, international organizations, civil society organizations, and stakeholders at the national and regional level is critical in and incorporating gender and social inclusion perspectives in the recommendation on care work. Once again, I'm pleased to express my gratitude to all the participants from ACW Focal Point, ACWC representatives who dedicate your time and insight on care work. My gratitude to ASEAN sectoral bodies who join via video conference and ASEAN Secretariat, all the moderator and speakers from across the region, representing your commitment and spirit. Sincere thanks to our value partnership, Oxfam and ESCAP, for organizing this important meeting. It provides the valuable platform to exchange information and collaboration towards our shared commitment to care work. Thank you very much. Last but not least, for all those who have joined us in person in Vientiane, I wish all of you have a safe journey back to your home countries. For all those who listen in online, thanks for your time and wishing you all the restful evening. Let us stay in touch and keep working together, learn from each other, and capitalize our shared knowledge and experiences. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Panit. Excellencies, distinguished guests, and participants, thank you all for being part of this forum and your active participation throughout the event. We hope you have found the discussion insightful and fruitful as we have. We will share a draft meeting report in the next week, a few weeks. A closing lunch will now take place on the same floor. Additionally, the Lao Women Union and Oxfam have organized a field visit in Vientiane, as communicated yesterday. We will be visiting the Informers Women's Workers in Nok Tha Thai village, where we can witness and learn about their valuable contribution to society. Afterwards, we will embark on a city tour exploring 3 major landmarks. We anticipate reaching the hotel approximately by 5:30 this evening. So for all of those who are staying in additional light or have late flights, we extend the warm invitation for you to join us on this engaging tour. It's a fantastic opportunity to experience more of the local culture and create lasting memories together. And we'll be leaving, I believe, by 1 p.m. following the lunch. And thank you once again for all of your active participation and valuable contribution to this forum. We hope you had a rewarding experience, and we look forward to making the most of our time together during this post-forum excursion. Safe travels for those heading home today, and see you soon, the rest of you who will be joining us at the field visit and city tour. Until then, take care and have a wonderful time. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's go for lunch. Yes. Excellency, trying to ask me to go back to the office and bring some gift for you. Yeah, but I put on my luggage. Maybe before we go to visit. Yeah, I'll be around here. Okay, yeah. Because maybe we can change. I'm not sure that we can wear high heels. Okay, yeah. The place that we will go to like this, I show you. Not do I have to take a place? The place we will go like this. Like this is Indian, right? And welcome to like this. So everyone needs to like change. Yeah, it's up to you. Don't so formal, it's very hot. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I will look around you. Yeah. Thank you for what me Yeah.